God, you look beautiful today. I wish you could see me or see you through my eyes. Because I see you as perfect. I see you as being flawless. I see you as being all-powerful. And what I want to talk about today is this idea, how do we claim more power in our lives? How do we bring that power into our lives? And last week, we did that. We talked about complaining. And we talked about people. How many people here raise your hand if you've got your purple bracelet on? Those of you that don't have a purple bracelet on is because you weren't here last week. And what they've done is they took a challenge that they will try to go 21 days and not complain. And every time they complain, they move the bracelet to the other wrist. And sometimes you may move that bracelet 10, 11 times in an hour. Because if you're with your mother-in-law, there's the possibility of that happening. Or if you're with a group of people that have become a complaint support system, that will happen. And so we're going to take it and we're going to look at it a little differently today because I want to go a little bit deeper. So before I go into the idea of sarcasm, I want to talk about the creative process. Because I think it's real clear that without an understanding of the creative process, what does all this stuff mean? Why are we bothering to do this? So the creative process is very simple. And I'm going to break it down as simply as I can. And I'm going to say, if you take a carrot seed and you put the carrot seed in the soil, you will grow carrots. Do you see how that creative process works? Seed, soil, form, right? Now, let's take it in differently. Thought, law, experience. So the sum total of our thoughts is surrounded by what? Consciousness, which is the law, which is the creative power, that aspect of God, okay, that creates. And then you get experience. But I want to go into this law, this middle form, the soil, that aspect of it. I really want to get real clear about it. I want you to know that that soil, or the law that is always creating, it is exact. It never says, are you doing this for this reason or for that reason? Is it good? Is it bad? Will it help you? Will it hurt you? The law does not care. But the law takes that tendency of your whole conscious and subconscious thought and it births it into experience. So what then is experience? It is a reflection of our thought. Am I making sense? So we know that if we look at a carrot, we know at one time it was a carrot seed. It was not a watermelon seed. It was not is there a thing as a potato seed? But anyway, but let's not go there. So, if we are having, let's say, a relationship issue, and our relationship is here's the experience. And that experience is not what we're seeking. What is that experience mirroring? It's mirroring the sum total of our conscious and unconscious thoughts. So when we want the experience of a relationship to change, we don't change the person necessarily. We don't try to please them. We don't try to do what they want. We change the total of where our thoughts are. We change how we see relationships, how we see ourselves. See, this is the real critical thing. How we see ourselves in a situation, in this case, a relationship. How do we see that? What's it like? If you've got in your mind the idea that society is put there, society has fed you a couple thoughts. Relationships are hard. You ever heard that? Relationships require a lot of work. You ever heard that? Relationships are painful. You ever heard men suck? Women, you know those women. You've heard all of these things, and they make up that total of thought. The question is, how are you going to shift your consciousness so you don't have an average experience like everybody else? You see, everybody else is having an average experience because everybody else is allowing that unconscious thought that they've been fed to control their lives instead of consciously choosing their thought. and deciding that I'm going to do it. But here's the thing. You got an 800-pound gorilla in this whole creative thing. And that is the unconscious mind, because it represents 95 to 98% of everything you think. And then you've got this conscious aspect over here that represents, in some people, 0% of what they think, and maybe up to 5%. I'm not being judgmental, I'm just stating what's really out there. So conscious thought is very minor compared to unconscious thought. You're hearing that? So listen to this statement. This is brilliant, and I read this in John DeMartini's new book. In a battle between the conscious thought and the unconscious thought always wins. So it doesn't matter if you're doing an affirmation or a prayer once a day. It has no bearing on it. But what is the sum total of your thinking? You know, when we look at it, prayer is what? Praying unceasingly, meaning speaking your word consciously into the law all the time. And that's where we came to last week when we talked about this idea of complaining. Because when you're complaining, what are you feeding the subconscious mind? Things that you don't want, am I right? So the more you feed the subconscious mind things that you don't want, the more you become a magnet to attract that into the experience. So when we shift out of that, we now move from the idea of complaining to criticism. So what is criticism? It's a form of complaining, is it not? And so let's take criticism even further. What is it again? It is a direct assault on someone. When you're criticizing someone, it's a direct attack. So when you're attacking, what do you expect to get back? What is the law going to give back to you? You're going to get attacked back. Either forthright or it'll be passive aggressive. So if you get into an argument with someone and you're lashing out at them, what's going to happen to you? They're going to lash right back to you. One of my favorite sayings, and those who've been at Agape a long time know this, is that when we argue with someone, when we engage in argument, the only person we're trying to convince is ourselves. Because when we truly know something, there's no reason to ever try to convince anyone of it. We know it. We speak it. We know it. We move on. See how simple that is? I speak it. I know it. I say it. I say it to my wife. I move on. Whether she listens or not is not my business. So this idea of complaining. A lot of questions have come up during the week of what is complaining? Complaining is when we do something to say, oh my God, there's emotion attached. Can you believe this? Can you believe this? And I'm going to break it down and make it real simple. Communicating is the process of giving information, verbally expressing information that is of value to that person that I'm with. If there's no value to saying something to someone, there's no point in saying it. So we've got to ask, what is behind that? Are you doing it to draw attention to yourself? Are you doing it to feel superior to someone else? Are you doing it to give yourself an excuse? You see, in the idea of new thought, in the idea of true spirituality, we are 100% responsible for how we experience life. Now notice this. I didn't say everything that we have happened to us. I said we're 100% responsible for what we experience. So if I go back to my trip to India, when I was caught in that horrendous natural disaster and we were stranded in an ashram with no electricity, and we ended up having to hike across the Himalayas to get to a helipad to come to the point where we could be airlifted to safety. You see, the only thing we communicated there was what was necessary to get us out. Now, I didn't choose to be in that natural disaster, but I chose how I got to experience it. Sometimes we're given parents in our lives that may not be the most ideal parents, but we can choose how we experience them. We don't have to let their mindset control our experience. So when we criticize someone, it's a direct attack on them. And it's always never going to work out. The idea is that if you're close to someone and you want to work with them, instead of criticizing them, tell them what you want. This is what I would like to do. This is how I see it, especially let's say it's a work situation. You know, I see that the result here is not exactly where I would like to see the result. So therefore, I want to suggest that through clarity of us talking, this is the result I see. What steps can we take to do that? You see how that was not criticizing. That was expressing a desire to have a result in a different way and to express it. So was I tearing at them? Was I ripping them apart? No, because when you attack someone, you're not going to get the response we want. So what then is sarcasm? Sarcasm is passive-aggressive criticism. If you look at the meaning of the word sarcasm, it means tearing of the flesh. Ooh, that's good. Tearing of the flesh. Now, I want you to know, in my life, up until this time, I was a master of sarcasm. I could be the master of it. I could take it into the workplace. I could take it into a bar. I could take it into the relationship. And I thought by doing so, I was creating humor. But you see, this is really so good. Think about this. Sarcasm is criticism with the humor escape hatch. Do you follow that? All we're doing is when we say, bless your heart, we're criticizing the hell out of something or someone. And we've got that bless your heart. Well, it justifies it, but what are we doing? We're ripping someone apart. Whether or not they're there or not, what are we saying into the law? Oh, we don't like that. What's the law going to give us? More of what we bless in the heart for. So really, you want to be careful what you bless and how you bless it. So sarcasm is a passive-aggressive way of really not taking responsibility for criticizing others by using humor as an escape hatch. Isn't that interesting? You ever hear it that way before? I hadn't either. And then I started thinking, okay, so this complaining thing, I understand complaining. Do you understand complaining and what it does to the mind? And do you understand criticism and what criticism really does, how criticism causes separation? And then sarcasm is just another form of criticism. So what we're doing is we're peeling the onion back. So if we're trying to get control of what's in our subconscious mind, we're going to start where we are. And we're going to take one step. And then as we take another step, we peel a little bit more, and we peel a little bit more. And the key thing is the journey doesn't end. The journey is eternal. We are human. We will always be slipping and sliding, going back and forth, in and out of consciousness, because we don't live in a conscious state all the time. We live very seldom in a non-conscious state. Does that make sense? So if that's the case, then what can I do on a daily basis that'll help me control my consciousness? Well, I'm going to share with you, if one thing is you've stopped complaining, if you stop criticizing, and if you stop sarcasm, you're going to be so far ahead of the game that you will shift your life experience. More importantly, think about what you're going to attract in your life. One of the things that people who start taking classes at Agape and they start doing the spiritual practice, they find that all of a sudden the friends that they have start to change. They just disappear because you become a vibration. Unless your friend changes, they can't be around you. The thing that's great about that is that when you change and you attract, you let that person go, and you really don't have to do much. They just disappear. Guess what? The universe cannot stand a void, so what does it do? It attracts someone that is a vibrational match. So one of the affirmations that I use all the time is this: I now release everything and anyone who does not support my highest expansion, my highest awareness. And I had an individual call me on the phone after I said that in a talk one Sunday, and they said, Lee, I might lose my husband. And I said, and? I said, the question is if you're becoming the highest vibration that you are, chances are if this man truly loves you, truly is in love with you, he's going to start to vibrate different. He's going to feel uncomfortable at first because it's uncomfortable when one person in a relationship is changing and the other is not. But when that other person stands the higher ground, the second we try to lower our vibration to make someone comfortable, where are we? In divorce court. We're miserable. Because once you've tasted the good, you cannot go back to what was good there. You see, when we progress in life, this is how we're going. We've got highs and lows, right? Highs and lows. And if you take a progressive journey up, where you're going up with the highs and lows, 5 years from now, your lows will be higher than your highs 5 years ago. Your highs will be exponentially higher. And you see, it's a gradual process. And why is it a gradual process? Because it takes time to shift the makeup of the subconscious mind. See what I'm getting at? This is not something that happens overnight. This is a day-to-day, moment-by-moment process that we get to choose to be a part of, to shift our lives, to create our lives, to take responsibility for our lives, to be the Christ on earth, to be the Buddha on earth. You see, this is what Jesus, Buddha, Krishna, all of them came to model. The fascinating thing is that I was watching a video the other day, and it was about the Christ story. Conceived of a virgin, born in a virgin birth, traveled somewhere else, disappeared for a while, came back and taught at the age of 30. At 33 was crucified. 3 days later rose from the dead. You go back in history, there are 25 stories prior to Jesus with the exact same MO. Why? Because they were talking about the creative process. How do you consciously create? So let's go into that. Ooh, this is really good. Think about that. You're born. You're born of a virgin birth. What does that mean? It means your slate is clear. There's nothing on your slate. You're not bound by anything and anything. And then what happens? You've got your childhood. In your childhood, what happens in your childhood? Your parents, your school system, society comes in, and all of a sudden your mind is molded and changed. Your unconscious mind is changed. And so in the Bible, that could be exactly what's happening. What happens? He disappears. What does he do in disappearance? He finds his spiritual practice. He finds that there's another way of looking at things. And in order to do that, he had to disappear from society as a whole. He had to go within and meditate. He had to go within and change the subconscious mind. And then once he got changed, what did he do? He said, this is so great. I'm coming out now and I'm teaching it. And so he comes out and he presents it to the world. And what happens in the world is few people get it. Because few people are ready to hear that self-empowerment message. It was clear Jesus would go to a mountain and he would speak, and there would be 9,000 people, and 3,000 would get it. 3,000 people would go, oh, well. 3,000 people would mock. Jesus didn't care about the mockers and the not-getters. He took the 3,000 that got it and went to the next mountain because he understood not everyone is ready in their evolution to grasp consciousness and to take responsibility. And so what happened? The masses could not handle the rebel that he was. He was the greatest rebel that ever walked the planet based on the history that we know. And so what do you do when you got a rebel that's bucking your comfort system of being able to blame? You persecute them, you kill them. But you see, you can't keep this idea of the creative process down. The creative process will always rebirth itself. And that's what the rebirthing, the raising from the dead is. Because here's the idea, we never die. We shed our human form. You see, if God is infinite, everywhere expressing always has been, then we are that aspect of God that has come forth as consciousness to create our lives. Meaning we have always been. We just haven't been in this body. And when we leave this body, that form that is always creating and expressing and becoming more continues on the journey for infinity. We don't go up to heaven and play a harp. We don't sit at the feet of Jesus and get grapes. Can you imagine how silly that is? Can you imagine an infinite power and presence that can do all things would even think of that? I know this is considered very much blasphemy in a Christian church, but I'm asking you to use your minds. I'm asking you to tap into divine wisdom that you are and ask what makes sense for me. I'm not belittling what goes on in a Christian church. I think there's beauty and love and joy going on there. I think that the message underneath is the way the people that are going to those centers can hear it. Same thing in a Muslim church, same thing in a Hindu, same thing in a Buddhist. There's not right or wrong. That's the whole thing. There's never right or wrong in the infinite nature that is God. Because God can't judge, because to judge means there's something outside of it to judge against. And if God is infinite, it cannot judge itself. Can you imagine if the only thing you knew was you? Could you judge yourself? You would have nothing to compare it against, would you? So look at it this way. When you created yourself, you came forth to be unique. You came forth to be something that has never been expressed in the history of the planet ever before. In all of time, there has never been another you. And you came forth to be that perfection, to be that uniqueness. And if you're that perfection and uniqueness, why would you ever compare yourself to someone else? It's going against the very foundation of who you are. So the journey is to uncover what is that joy inside. What is that joy that's desiring to express and be experienced? And when you find that, you dedicate everything of your mind, being, and soul to that, to be the perfect you. You see, no one knows the perfect you other than you. No one's going to ever give you that answer till you go within and you find it, because you know what? You're perfect. You're infinite wisdom. You're divine being. You're the perfect expression of God. You wanted me to go into an affirmation about just how magnificent you are? Yesterday, we did an angel walk at my home with the foundations class workshop. And an angel walk is where we have lines of people. And we start at one end, and one person leans over to the person's ear and they whisper the truth about God that they are. And then you go forward and each person in that line whispers it to you. And then we bring the next person. So in the course of the angel walk, like yesterday, there were 11 of us. So 10 times we got to express love, and 10 times we got to hear love. So when you leave an experience like that, there's no greater high, because you've connected with that which you've always been. You've been reminded of who and what your truth is. I'm actually considering maybe the Sunday after Christmas of doing an angel walk as the service, where the whole community can experience something that blissful. But we've got to find a way to bring all this great music into that process as well. So pray about that, because your prayers are what's guiding and directing the unfoldment of the spiritual center that we are. Because this spiritual center is not Lee. This spiritual center is the energy that you are, combined with the energy that everyone else here is. You're creating your experience right here, right now. Decide if it's going to be something that's mediocre, or decide if it's going to be great. I promise you, whatever you decide, you will have that experience. So remember, as we go forth this week, we're not going to complain. We're going to do our best not to complain. We're going to expand that into not criticizing, and we're going to try not to be sarcastic. We're going to try to use information or speaking our word like it's supposed to be for conveying information. And we always ask the question, what am I trying to convey? What is the purpose of even talking? Make sense? I can see you're going to have a great week. I want to thank you for joining us today. I am so grateful that you took your time to watch or listen to this message. If you found this message beneficial, I would ask you to go to our website. Once there, click on the Contribute button and experience the joy of conscious and purposeful giving. It is through your gifts that we are able to bring this message to the world. I would also ask you to please share this message with anyone you feel might benefit. Again, I want to thank you for joining me and the Agape community as together we bring joy to life.